My husband slid a check for $500 across the desk and told me it was a generous severance, because his mistress was taking over my role. He didn't realize that the moment he fired me, he also fired the qualifying agent for the company, turning his $30,000 a week operation into a crime scene by morning. I stared at the check. $500. Not even enough to cover the groceries for the month. Definitely not enough to cover the 10 years I'd spent building Apex Roofing and Restoration from a beat-up Chevy Silverado into the premier roofing contractor in the county. Derek sat back in his leather chair. The one I bought him for his birthday last year. He looked smug. Comfortable. Next to him, leaning against the filing cabinet that held all the permits I had pulled, was Sarah. She was 23. She had been our social media manager for 3 months. Now apparently she was the office manager. And the new girlfriend. It's just business, Mel, Derek said. He didn't even look me in the eye. He was looking at his phone. Probably checking the weather for the golf course. Sarah has a fresh perspective. We need to modernize. You've been stressed lately. It's affecting the vibe. The vibe. I had been stressed because I was managing 3 commercial tear-offs, payroll for 15 guys, and the insurance audit all by myself, while he was networking at the country club. So I'm fired, I said. My voice sounded hollow, like it was coming from someone else in the room. Let go, Derek corrected. He tapped the check. Take the severance. Take a vacation. Honestly, Mel, you should thank me. You look tired. Sarah giggled. A small airy sound. We just want what's best for the brand, she said. She was wearing my scarf. I realized it slowly. That was the silk scarf I'd left in the office last week. My hands started to shake. I reached out and took the check. Hey, I said. Derek looked surprised. He expected a fight. He expected screaming. He expected me to beg. Okay, he asked. If that's what you want, I said. I stood up. My legs felt like lead. I'll pack my personal things. Just the box on your desk, Derek said quickly. Leave the laptop. And the files. Company property. I nodded. I put a picture of my mom, my favorite stapler, and a half-dead succulent into a cardboard box. I walked to the door. Oh, and Mel. Derek called out. I turned. Leave the keys to the Raptor. Company truck. I dug the keys out of my purse. I tossed them on the floor. You'll have to Uber home, he said, flashing that grin that used to make my knees weak. Budget cuts. I walked out into the parking lot. It was raining. Of course it was raining. I stood there, soaking wet, holding a box of junk, waiting for an Uber that was 12 minutes away. I watched through the window as Derek spun his chair around to face Sarah. He was laughing. He thought he had won. He thought he held all the cards. He had the money, the trucks, the cruise, the reputation. He thought I was just the wife who answered the phones. The Uber driver smelled like stale cigarettes and pine air freshener. I sat in the back, shivering. My phone buzzed. A notification from our bank. Password changed. I tried to log in. Access denied. I tried the credit card portal. Access denied. He hadn't just fired me. He had erased me. I checked my personal checking account. $42.12. Derek had moved our joint savings into the business account for cash flow 3 months ago. I had agreed to it. Like an idiot. Now he had locked me out of the business account. I was 34 years old. I had helped build a $2 million year company. And I couldn't afford to buy a pizza. I got home. The house was quiet. It was a nice house. A 4-bedroom colonial we bought 2 years ago. I walked into the kitchen and saw the calendar on the fridge. Monday, start the Henderson project. My stomach dropped. The Henderson project. It was the biggest contract we had ever landed. A full roof replacement for a private elementary school. $150,000 job. It started Monday. Materials were being delivered tomorrow. Friday. Dumpsters were already on site. If that job went well, it would open doors to municipal contracts. If it went bad, it would bankrupt us. Well, it would bankrupt him. I sat at the kitchen island. I poured myself a glass of wine. The cheap stuff from the back of the pantry. I sat there for a long time, just staring at the granite countertop. I felt small. Stupid. How did I let this happen? I saw the signs. The late nights. The client dinners that went until 2 a.m. The way he started guarding his phone. But I ignored it. Because we were building an empire. I thought we were partners. I looked at the $500 check sitting on the counter. Felt like an insult. A slap in the face. A generous severance. Actually laughed. A dry hacking sound. He really thought that was it. He thought I would crawl away, file for divorce and fight for scraps in court while he lived it up with Sarah on the profits from the Henderson job. He had the power. He knew the judges in town. He played golf with the mayor. He had the high-priced lawyer on retainer. I had $42. But then I remembered something. Something mundane. Something that happened 5 years ago in a cramped apartment, while Derek was crying at the kitchen table. I stood up. I walked to the hallway where we kept the ego wall. Framed photos of completed jobs. Newspaper clippings. And right in the center, the state contractor's license. Gold seal. Fancy calligraphy. Looked impressive. Most people just looked at the company name, Apex Roofing and Restoration LC. They rarely looked at the name listed under qualifying agent. I took the frame off the wall. I wiped the dust off the glass. There it was. Qualifying agent, Melanie J. Brooks. Not Derek Brooks. Melanie. Me. I remembered the night he failed the trade exam for the 3rd time. He had thrown his book across the room. Put a hole in the drywall. I can't do it, Mel, he had screamed. The math. The load calculations. It's trick questions. I'm a roofer, not a mathematician. He was good at selling. Good at managing guys. But he couldn't pass the state board exam to save his life. So I took it. I spent 3 months studying code books while he watched football. I learned about flashing requirements, wind uplift calculations, OSHA regulations. I walked into that testing center and scored a 96%. I became the qualifying agent. Legally, in the eyes of the state, I was the company. The license belonged to the human being, not the LLC. The LLC just rented the license from me. Without a qualifying agent, an LLC isn't a construction company. It's just a group of guys with trucks and hammers. And in our state, contracting without a license isn't just a fine. It's a crime. I sat on the floor of the hallway holding the framed license. The glass was cold against my legs. I started to think about the logistics. Derek didn't know the law. He never bothered to learn the administrative side. That was secretary work. He thought the license was just a piece of paper we paid a fee for every 2 years. He didn't understand that the qualifying agent carries the liability. That the QA is responsible for supervision. I was fired. I couldn't supervise. If I couldn't supervise, I couldn't be the QA. If I wasn't the QA, he had no license. But he didn't know that yet. He thought he could just replace me with Sarah. Sarah, whose degree was in fashion merchandising. Sarah, who thought a soffit was a type of pillow. A plan started to form. It wasn't a fast plan. It was a slow, burning fuse. I needed to be smart. If I just called him and yelled, he would gaslight me. He would threaten me. He would say, "Don't be crazy, Mel." He would say, "I'll sue you." I needed to make it irreversible. I went to my home office. I pulled out my old laptop. The one I used before I got the fancy desktop at work. It was slow. It whirred like a jet engine. I opened the browser and went to the State Licensing Board website. I searched for the form. Form 13B. Notification of Disassociation of Qualifying Agent. There it was. A simple PDF. 2 pages. It asked for the effective date of resignation. It asked for the reason. It had a checkbox at the bottom. Do you authorize the transfer of pending permits to a new qualifier? I clicked no. I didn't fill it out yet. I needed more ammo. If I filed this, the state would send a letter. A letter takes 3 days. Derek would get the letter, panic, and maybe find some shady way to cover it up before the Henderson job started. I needed the timing to be perfect. I needed him to be committed. I needed him to be exposed. I looked at the calendar again. The Henderson project. The materials were dropping Friday. The tear-off started Monday morning. That was the danger zone. Once you rip a roof off a school, you are committed. You can't just tarp it and walk away. The building is vulnerable. If he got shut down during the tear-off, the liability would be catastrophic. Wait. I paused. If the liability was catastrophic, it would fall on me. I was still the QA until the state processed the paperwork. If he screwed up that roof on Monday, my license was on the line. I couldn't let him. I needed legal advice. Real advice. But I had $42. I remembered an old friend. Jim. Jim wasn't a high-powered corporate shark. He was a guy I went to high school with who did contract law out of a strip mall next to a vape shop. But Jim was smart. And Jim hated bullies. I called him. It was 8:30 p.m. Mel, he answered. Everything okay? No, I said. Derek fired me. He's keeping the company. He's keeping the money. Silence on the line. He knows the license is yours, right? Jim asked. I don't think he remembers, I said. Or he doesn't care. Meet me at my office tomorrow at 7 a.m., Jim said. Bring the severance check. Do not cash it. Bring your license certificate. Bring proof of the firing. I didn't sleep that night. I spent the night printing emails. I had the email Derek sent to the team. Melanie is moving on to new opportunities. Sarah will be handling operations effective immediately. I printed the bank notifications showing my access was revoked. I printed the screenshots of the change of password texts. I built a timeline. It was tedious. My eyes burned. I ran out of paper at 3 a.m. I had to scavenge paper from the kids' printer. Wait, we didn't have kids. The guest room printer. God, I was tired. But looking at the stack of paper gave me energy. It was proof. It was a weapon. Friday morning. 7 a.m. Jim's office smelled like old coffee and dry cleaning. He looked at my stack of papers. He looked at the $500 check. He laughed. This is beautiful, he said. Beautiful? I asked. I'm broke, Jim. No, Jim said. You're broke right now. But legally, you are the golden goose. He explained the strategy. If you disassociate today, Jim said, the state puts the license on probationary status. The company has 60 days to find a new QA. Usually that means they can finish existing jobs. My heart sank. So he gets away with it. No, Jim grinned. He tapped the desk. Because you aren't just disassociating. You are reporting a violation. You are reporting that you have been locked out of the financials and the job sites, meaning you cannot fulfill your legal duty to supervise. That triggers an immediate suspension. Immediate. If we file it in person, Jim said. The office is in the Capitol. 2-hour drive. Let's go, I said. We drove to the Capitol. I sat in the passenger seat of Jim's Honda Civic. I watched the trees blur by. My phone blew up. Texts from suppliers. Hey Mel, card declined for the dumpster. Texts from the foreman. Mel, where's the portal login? I didn't answer. I let it burn. We got to the Department of Professional Regulation. It was a beige building. Depressing. We took a number. We waited 3 hours. I ate a vending machine sandwich that tasted like sawdust. Finally, our number was called. The clerk looked bored. Until Jim started talking. My client has been terminated from her role as qualifying agent, but the company is continuing to operate using her credentials without her supervision. We need to file an emergency dissociation and a cease and desist request. The clerk blinked. Fill this out, she said, handing me a different form. A pink one. I filled it out. My hand was steady this time. Reason for disassociation. Termination of employment. Lockout from company assets. Inability to supervise safety standards. The clerk stamped it. Received. October 14th. 1:42 p.m. The sound of that stamp was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. Cage thunk. What happens now? I asked. Now, the clerk said, typing into her computer. The status updates in the system. It takes about 2 hours to propagate to the public search. We send a certified letter to the business address. He starts a school roof on Monday, I said. He's tearing off the roof of an elementary school. The clerk stopped typing. She looked at me over her glasses. A school. Yes. The Henderson Elementary job. She frowned. If the license is suspended, he can't pull permits. He can't be on that roof. He doesn't know he's suspended, I said. He will, she said. I'll flag the local building department in that county. They'll get a notification by Monday morning. We drove back. I felt lighter. But also terrified. I was burning down the house I helped build. But Derek had already locked me out of it. I was just making sure he couldn't live there anymore either. The weekend was excruciating. I stayed at a cheap motel because I didn't want to be at the house if he came by to get more company property. I turned off my phone. I watched bad cable TV. I ate takeout. I waited for Monday. Monday morning. 6:30 a.m. I drove to the Henderson Elementary School. I parked across the street. I wasn't in the Raptor. I was in a rental car. A beige sedan that blended in. I saw the Apex trucks roll up. There was the big F-250 Platinum. Derek's truck. He jumped out. He was wearing a clean polo shirt. Sunglasses. He looked like a king surveying his kingdom. Sarah was there too. Wearing a hard hat that was too big for her. Taking selfies with the crane in the background. I watched the crew start setting up the ladders. They started the tear-off. I saw shingles coming down. I saw the tar paper being ripped up. They were exposing the deck. There was no turning back now. 7:45 a.m. A white sedan with the county seal on the door pulled up. The building inspector. I knew him. Mike. Mike was a stickler. He measured nail patterns with a ruler. Mike got out of the car with a clipboard. He didn't look happy. I rolled down my window just a crack so I could hear. Mike walked right up to Derek. Derek smiled. Reached out to shake Mike's hand. Mike didn't shake it. He handed Derek a piece of paper. A red piece of paper. A stop work order. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw the body language. Derek laughed at first. He pointed at the roof. He was doing his charming salesman routine. Mike pointed at the paper. Then he pointed at the trucks. Then he pointed at the street. Leave. Derek's face changed. The smile dropped. He looked confused. Then angry. He started waving his arms. He pulled out his phone. He was calling me. My burner phone, the one I kept for emergencies which Jim advised me to use, sat silent on the passenger seat. My main phone was off. The crew stopped working. 15 guys standing on a half-ripped roof. Mike was writing something else. A citation. Then another citation. Then another. Sarah was standing there, phone in hand, but she wasn't taking selfies anymore. She looked terrified. The principal of the school came out. A stern woman in a gray suit. She started talking to Mike. Mike pointed at Derek. The principal turned on Derek. I saw her mouth moving. Fast. Agri. Safety. Children. Liability. Derek was shrinking. Physically shrinking. He retreated to his truck. I turned on my main phone. It vibrated instantly. 37 missed calls. 12 voicemails. Text message. Pick up the phone. Text message. There is a glitch with the license. Call the board. Text message. Melanie, stop playing games. Text message. I will call the police. I texted back. One sentence. The severance check bounced. It hadn't, but I knew it would drive him crazy. I started the car and drove away. I didn't go home. I went to the bank. Not our bank. A new bank. I opened a new account with my last $40. Then I went to Jim's office. By noon the news was spreading. In the construction world, gossip travels faster than light. Did you hear about Apex? Shut down mid-job. Operating without a license. The wife left and took the credentials. My email started pinging. Not my old work email. My personal one. Clients. The ones who knew me. The ones who knew I was the one who actually solved problems. Subject. Rumors about Apex. Hi Mel, we heard what happened. We have a deposit with Derek. Are we safe? I didn't reply yet. I waited. Tuesday came. Derek showed up at Jim's office. He looked like he hadn't slept. His polo shirt was wrinkled. He didn't have Sarah with him. He stormed into the waiting room. Where is she? He shouted. Jim walked out calmly. Mr. Brooks. You are trespassing. She stole my company. Derek yelled. She hijacked my license. Her license, Jim corrected. It's her license. Her name. Her test scores. Her liability. We have a contract. Derek slammed his hand on the receptionist's desk. The Henderson job is exposed. It rained last night. The gym is leaking. They are suing me for damages. I need that license reactivated now. I walked out from the back office. Derek froze. He looked at me. He looked at my cheap jeans and my old sweater. Fix this, he hissed. Call them. Tell them it was a mistake. Tell them you were just emotional. I wasn't emotional, I said. I was fired. I'll hire you back, he said quickly. Right now. Double salary. You can have your office back. I'll fire Sarah. Just fix the license. He was desperate. The lawsuit from the school district would be in the millions. Without a license, his general liability insurance policy was void. They wouldn't pay a dime for the water damage in the gym. He was personally liable. He was looking at losing the house, the trucks, the boat, everything. No, I said. No. I don't want the job, I said. You have to, he screamed. You're my wife. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow, I said. And since the business has zero value now, actually negative value since you have massive lawsuits pending, I don't want any part of it. You can keep Apex. You can't do this, he whispered. You slid a check across the desk, Derek, I said. $500. You said it was business. I leaned in close. This is business. The fallout was fast and brutal. The state licensing board didn't just suspend the license. They opened an investigation into unlicensed contracting during a state of emergency. There had been a minor storm declaration 2 weeks prior, which triggered enhanced penalties. It was a felony. Derek was arrested on Thursday. I didn't watch it happen, but a friend sent me the mugshot. He looked confused. He was released on bail, but the damage was done. The news picked it up. Local roofer charged with fraud, school gym ruined. The video footage showed water pouring into the elementary school library. It showed Derek's truck speeding away. They mentioned the qualifying agent had resigned days prior due to ethical concerns. Jim had worded the press release perfectly. Suppliers started calling in their debts. Since the LLC was now in bad standing, they went after the personal guarantees. Derek had signed all of them. He tried to claim I was responsible, but without the license, the fraud was all his. His trophy life evaporated in 72 hours. The country club membership? Revoked. The Raptor? Repossessed. Sarah? She posted a TikTok crying about how she was manipulated by a narcissist and broke up with him via text. But I still had a problem. I was broke. I was living in a motel. And my name was technically associated with the disaster, even if I had cleared myself legally. I needed to pivot. I had the license. It was in my name. It was currently suspended for Apex, but I could transfer it. I could start a new company. But I had no capital. No trucks. No ladders. Then the phone rang. It was the superintendent of the school district. Mrs. Brooks. Miss Brooks, I corrected. I'm going back to my maiden name. Miss Brooks. We are in a bind. The roof is open. We have emergency tarps, but we need a contractor to finish the job. Legally, we need to bid it out, but under the emergency clause, we can direct hire. Hey, I said. We know you were the brains behind Apex, he said. The inspectors told us. Your paperwork was always perfect. The problems only started when you left. I held my breath. If you can form a new entity and get insurance by Monday, the job is yours. Same price. We just need it done right. I hung up. I called Jim. Can we incorporate by Monday? We can do a DBA today, Jim said. Get the LLC filed expedited. Insurance might be tough with no money down. I called our old insurance broker, Mike. Mike, it's Mel. Mel. I heard. What a mess. I need a policy. General liability and workers' comp. By Monday. Mel, you know I need a down payment. Usually 20%. I have $40, Mike. But I have the Henderson contract. $150,000. Verified. Silence. I trust you, Mel, he said. I never trusted Derek. I'll front the premium personally. Pay me when the first draw comes in. I started crying. Right there in the motel room. Thank you, Mike. I called the crew. The 15 guys Derek had left high and dry. They hadn't been paid for 2 weeks. Hey guys, I said on speakerphone to the foreman, Carlos. Boss lady. Carlos said. We are dying here. Derek is hiding. I'm starting a new company, I said. Phoenix Roofing. I have the Henderson job. I can't pay you for last week. You'll have to file a claim against Derek for that. But I can pay you starting Monday. Top rate. And I treat you with respect. We're in, Carlos said. We never liked him anyway. He never knew how to hold a hammer. Monday morning came again. 1 week after the disaster. I pulled up to Henderson Elementary. I was driving my rental sedan. But the guys were there. They had their own tools. Carlos had taped over the Apex logo on the side of his truck with duct tape. In Sharpie he had written Phoenix. The principal met me outside. He shook my hand. "Thank you for coming back," she said. "I never wanted to leave," I said. "We finished the roof in 3 weeks. It was perfect. Passed inspection on the first try." When the check from the school district hit my new business account, I stared at the number on the screen. It wasn't $500. It was enough to pay Mike back. Enough to pay the guys. Enough to buy a used truck. And enough to get an apartment. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new office. It wasn't fancy. It was a flex warehouse space in an industrial park. But the desk was mine. The chair was mine. And the license on the wall? Phoenix Roofing and Construction. Qualifying agent, Melanie J. Brooks. Jim walked in. He was my corporate counsel now. "Update on the divorce proceedings," he said, sitting down. "Lay it on me." "The bankruptcy trustee is seizing the house. Derek is moving into his mom's basement in Ohio." "Ouch," I said. I took a sip of coffee. "What about the criminal charges?" "Plea deal," Jim said. "Probation for 3 years. He can never own a construction company in this state again. And he has to pay restitution to the school district." "He doesn't have any money," I said. "Exactly," Jim said. "He'll be garnishing wages for the rest of his life." I looked out the window. I saw my crew loading up for the day. We had 3 trucks now. Real ones. I saw Carlos laughing with the new guys. It was peaceful. Hard work, yes. Stressful, sure. But no one was gaslighting me. No one was telling me I was just a secretary. My phone rang. It was a new client. "Hi, is this Phoenix Roofing?" "This is Melanie," I said. "How can I help you?" "We heard you're the one who fixed the school," the man said. "We have a shopping center that needs a new TPO roof. We heard you're the best." "We are," I said. And I meant it. I thought about that $500 check sometimes. I still had it. I never cashed it. I framed it. It hung right next to my license. A reminder of what I was worth. And a reminder that you should never, ever fire the person who holds the keys to your kingdom. Derek wanted a trophy wife. He ended up with a criminal record. I ended up with the empire. I signed the contract for the shopping center. "We can start Monday," I said. "Perfect," the client said. I hung up. Outside the sun was shining. It wasn't raining anymore. I grabbed my hard hat, pink because why not, and walked out to the truck. It was time to get to work.